Okay, so today we are unpacking a really huge shift in the Anglican Communion, which is, the third largest Christian body in the entire world. There's been this fracture, this crack that's been growing for decades, and it seems like it's finally reached a breaking point. What's coming out of this is a brand new center of gravity for the faith, and it's located far from its old historic roots in England. So what exactly went down, and what does this mean for the future of this global church? Let's dive in.
At a massive gathering in Abuja, Nigeria, this was the declaration that echoed through the room. The future has arrived. And believe me, this wasn't just some hopeful catchphrase. No, this was the signal of a profound, very deliberate reordering that has been years, if not decades, in the making.
So here's the headline. A group called GAFCON, that stands for the Global Anglican Future Conference, has just made a huge move. They've launched a whole new governing body, the Global Anglican Council. What they're basically doing is creating a new center of power, and in the process, rejecting the historical leadership that's always been based in Canterbury, England. This is really a story about a massive power shift in global Christianity, moving from the global north to the global south.
But a moment like this doesn't just happen overnight. It didn't come out of nowhere. To really understand what happened in Abuja, we have to rewind a bit. We're talking over 20 years of tension, of theological conflict. It's been a long and pretty difficult road to get here.
This timeline really maps out how things escalated. The real flashpoint was way back in 2003 when the church in the U.S. consecrated Bishop Gene Robinson. Just 5 years after that, you see the conservative leaders getting organized, forming GAFCON, and writing their own statement of belief. Fast forward to the 2022 Lambeth Conference, and the divisions were just deeper than ever. All of that leads to this moment in 2026, the Abuja Affirmation, which basically says, the old system, it's broken, and we're moving on.
So, to really get what GAFCON is pushing back against, you have to understand this term, the instruments of communion. For centuries, these four things, the Archbishop, the big conferences, the councils, they were the glue holding the whole global church together. But in GAFCON's view, these instruments have completely failed to do their job, failed to uphold what they see as biblical authority. So they felt they had to create a new way forward.
And this really gets us to the heart of the matter. Because this isn't just about personalities or church politics. At its absolute core, this is a fundamental disagreement about what a church even is. What is it that actually holds it together? And right here, you can see the two competing visions, side by side. On one hand, you've got the traditional, Canterbury-led view of an institutional communion. Think of it like a big, sprawling family that's defined by a shared last name and a long history. The unity comes from the structure itself, even when people in the family deeply, deeply disagree. But on the other side, you have GAFCON's view of a confessional community. This is more like a club where you have to agree to a core set of beliefs to be a member. For them, that shared belief, that shared confession, it's completely non-negotiable.
So what does GAFCON's new setup actually look like? Well, in Abuja, they didn't just tear down the old system, they went ahead and built a new one to replace it.
They made three really clear moves. First, they got rid of their old leadership body, the Primates Council, which was made up of the head archbishops. Second, they created this new Global Anglican Council. And third, and this is a really key detail, they empowered this new council with a much broader base. They gave bishops, clergy, and even lay people full voting rights. They're calling it a more conciliar or council-based way of leading.
And get a load of the first leaders of this new council. You've got Archbishop Laurent Mbanda from Rwanda as the chairman, and Archbishop Miguel Uchôa from Brazil as the vice chairman. This leadership slate right here powerfully illustrates that global shift we were just talking about. The center of energy and leadership is now, without a doubt, in the global south.
But what happened in Abuja wasn't quite as straightforward as it sounds. Behind all the big public announcements, there's actually a really surprising change of plans that tells a much more complicated story about this whole movement. Right? This is the question that so many people were asking. The widespread expectation for months leading up to this conference was that GAFCON was going to elect a single person, a figurehead, to be a direct counterpart to the Archbishop of Canterbury, a new spiritual leader for their side of the church.
But that didn't happen. According to reports from inside the conference, the plan to elect a first among equals was just abruptly scrapped. The announcement of a collective council instead of one big leader apparently confused some of the delegates and kind of deflated the mood in the room. So what happened?
Well, sometimes who isn't in the room is just as important as who is. The primates, those head archbishops from several key conservative countries, just stayed away.
And another huge conservative group, the GSFA, was also missing. This suggests that even within this conservative movement, there isn't total agreement on the strategy. That U-turn on electing a single leader? It was probably a direct result of these divisions, a sign that this whole realignment is not nearly as simple or as unified as it might look from the outside.
So what does this all mean for the future? Is this a reformation from within, like GAFCON says it is, or is it a schism, a permanent break? That is the central question now facing this entire global faith.
I mean, GAFCON's own words are pretty clear on this. In their mind, they haven't created a second separate church. They argue there are just two completely incompatible ideas of what the church is. They see what they're doing not as leaving, but as rescuing the real communion and bringing it back to what they believe are its true, historic, confessional roots.
And that leaves all of us with this final, crucial question. At the end of the day, what is the essential glue that holds a global faith together? Is it the centuries of shared history and institutions, or is it a common, unified belief system? The answer to that question is going to define the future of not just Anglicanism, but probably religious institutions all over the world,